Hello everyone, it's Ruben here, and today we're going to talk about werewolf versus vampirism and maybe being non-infected as well, so just being a clean and pure soul. Anyway, so what are we going to talk about? A lot of people have been asking me, and I see it asked a lot around everywhere, should I become a werewolf, a vampire, or neither of those? So what we're going to talk about the video first of all is how it works. How does the werewolf curse work and the vampiric curse? What do they give? And which one would be better to pick? Or what are the advantages of one? So first of all, we're going to talk about the werewolf and vampirism and the differences between the two of them. Okay, now, once you have been infected with a lycanthropy curse, aka werewolf, you have the option to level your abilities and to become a werewolf. Now, how the werewolf works is you gain an ultimate, the werewolf ultimate, and you need to generate ultimate points in order to activate it. So basically it works like any other ultimate you got from your class lines or your weapon lines. It works like any ultimate like that. And once you have enough ultimate points, you are actually able to go into a werewolf form, and it will increase your spell resistance, physical resistance, and overall your other abilities as well, such as weapon damage, like you can see here. Also increase max stamina. So you do become more tanky, and if you look at my skill bar, you see a whole set of different abilities. Because once you go into werewolf form, you are not able to use any of your abilities from the class or weapon lines. You only are able to use any of the 5 werewolf abilities that you can unlock once you got the curse. There are of course mobs you can choose, but these are the active abilities you will gain. Now, once you go into werewolf form, you do not have an unlimited duration. Right here under my bar you can see the duration of my werewolf form, and once that bar hits 0, I will go out of werewolf form and it will end. A werewolf form duration is 30 seconds, but you can increase the duration by passives. Passives such as, there is like Blood Rage. When you do damage, the duration of your werewolf transformation is increased by 4 seconds. This effect can acquire once every 5 seconds, and you can also eat corpses to increase the duration of your werewolf form. Once you have unlocked the Devour passive, allows you to devour corpse to increase the... So, in theory, you could be in werewolf form forever, as long as you have enough fights around you and enough corpses. You can keep the werewolf form up at all times. Now, the vampire works a little bit different. So let's go over to the vampire. So vampirism works very different. With the vampire, you don't have an ultimate that you have to activate in order to be a werewolf or a vampire. So you always have the benefits and the downsides of being a vampire. They are active constantly, whereas with the werewolf, you do get increased poison damage, but only when you go into werewolf form. So when you are not in werewolf form, you are just exactly the same as a non-infected player who isn't either a werewolf or a vampire. Then you have this exact same stats as them. So the vampire is different because, like I said, you constantly get the benefits from being a vampire. Passives such as Darkstalker ignore the movement speed penalty while in crouch. So like you can see, we just move at the same speed when we are walking or when we are crouching, like you can see right here. Other abilities such as Unnatural Resistance reduces the severity of the health recovery. Undeath reduce your damage taken by up to 33% based on your missing health while you are below 50% health. Supernatural Recovery increase your magicka and stamina recovery by 10%. Savage Feeding, etc. So what are the upsides and downsides of being a vampire? First of all, like you can see the upsides, Undeath, reduce damage taken when you are on lower health. Supernatural Recovery, increase magic and stamina recovery. You move faster while sneaking, and stuff like that. However, there are also downsides. Stage 4 Vampirism, max stage, gives me reduced health recovery, increased fire damage taken, and then other positive effects. Vampire abilities cost 20% less and advance your vampirism stage. Feeding reduce your vampirism stage. Sneak up binds an enemy humanoid to feed. So you can reduce your vampiric stage, but personally I always stay at vampire stage 4, you know, because it's not worth the effort for me personally. Now, the vampire also works different, that you do gain an ultimate and 2 active abilities, but you can just slot them on your weapon bar. For example, I can just have my normal ability bar and I can slot active abilities from the vampire line. Whereas with the werewolf, I will have to go into werewolf form to be able to use any abilities from the werewolf line. With the vampire, I don't have to do that. I can just slot in and use them at any time. Abilities such as Mist Form, here you can see it, or the ultimate Bat Swarm or Drain Essence. So those are the 2 major differences, first of all, between a werewolf and a vampire. Werewolf is not active constantly. You can slot the werewolf ultimate on your back bar for 50% increased stamina recovery. For example, something that I do on my Nightblades. My Nightblade, for example, is a werewolf. However, I never used the werewolf form. I just had the werewolf form on my back bar for the passive, well, so that your stamina recovery is increased by 15%. And this doesn't give me any disadvantage. A lot of people think that being a werewolf gives you increased poison damage or increased disease damage taken, and that is true, but only when you transform into a werewolf. When you are a player that is infected with the werewolf curse, but you do not use the werewolf ultimate, there is no downside to being a werewolf and no advantage really either, except for the fact that you could slot the ultimate for the increased stamina recovery, like I'm doing here. So let's talk about the vampire. When should you pick vampirism, if you should pick it at all? So first of all, in regards of PvE and Magicka users, being a vampire, like you already saw, it is very nice because it gives you a very nice passive, which is the supernatural recovery passive, which increases your Magicka and stamina recovery. While you do get more vulnerable to fire damage, which can be problematic if you face like any bosses who use fire damage or anything like that, there is also another advantage of being a vampire, which is the undeath. Reduce your damage taken by up to 33% based on your missing health while you are below 50% health. Being a vampire is very, very useful if you are a PvE tank. I myself am pretty much a vampire on all my PvE tank characters because the advantages just greatly outweigh the disadvantages in my opinion. Now, the vampire is also great for PvP, and specifically in my opinion for classes such as the Templar or the Dragon Knight, and even maybe the new Necromancer class. And the reason for this is because these classes overall lack movability. The classes such as the Sorcerer and Nightblade, the Sorcerer can quickly teleport around and the Nightblade can cloak around. The Templars and Dragon Knights, for example, don't really have any of these kind of abilities that allow them to quickly move around. Neither do they have something to go in to hide, such as the cloak from a Nightblade. So why does the vampire is such a good choice then if you want more movability? Well, abilities such as Mist Form, dissolve into a dark mist, reducing your damage taken by 75% for 4 seconds. Entering this form removes and grants immunity to all disabling and immobilization effects, but you cannot be healed and your Magicka recovery is disabled. Now, the recovery disabling is of course not that great, but it's very, very nice if you have a bunch of people attacking you and you need to do some kiting, you need to get away a little bit. Something like Mist Form can be very, very useful. And as well, you have the 75 damage reduction. So you could pop something like a Figure and then you quickly go in Mist Form, allowing you to recover. And like I said, the movability that you get from it is also nice. Now on top of that, you have the Crouch passive, which can be useful if you're sneaking around inside of it or anything like that. I myself really like vampirism on Magicka characters, but I also keep in mind that I do get more vulnerable to some stuff like fire damage. If you don't rely on anything like health recovery, if you use sets like Trollking, you really shouldn't be vampire because you want to keep that health recovery. But apart from that, for Sorcerer or anything like that, I personally really do like my vampirism, and I prefer to have the increased recovery, and it just outweighs the good sides, outweighs the bad things. Now, I really do like Vampire for Magica characters. I myself don't really use it on any stamina characters apart from tanks and PvE. But it's not like I use Vampire on any stamina PvP characters. Though it could be very useful if you do a lot of open world PvP, small skill like 2-man, 4-man, where you overall face yourselves in a lot of situations where you need to kite. Then something like Mistform can really be worth running. Now the next one, of course, is the Werewolf. First of all, the Werewolf is pretty much useless to any Magicka based or focused characters. If you really want something like stamina recovery for the ultimate, I personally wouldn't see why. Maybe because you are a sorcerer which uses Dark Exchange, but apart from that, I really wouldn't recommend becoming a werewolf for any Magicka based characters. Now of course there is no downside to being a werewolf unless you use the ultimate, so if you just want to check it out or anything like that, go ahead, just use it, but do not expect it to be useful or anything like that. Now in PvE you don't see a lot of werewolves either, because overall it will be too hard to gain a DPS such that you would normally get in a humanoid form. Though, you know, I do see people running it sometimes, and I think it's mostly just for the fun of it. And you can definitely run it in PvE, in like dungeons or anything like that, if your group is fine with it to be a little bit slower. And in the end, it's all about having fun in the game, right? So if you want to go run ahead, do a werewolf in PvE, then you can definitely do it. Do not do it, however, when you are the tank, because you will not have an aggro, and that will just really screw your group up. Now, in terms of PvP, Werewolf is incredibly powerful. If you know how to play a werewolf, it can be a very, very dangerous enemy to fight. The abilities from the werewolf are not only very powerful, they also have some great damage over time effects and debuffs, such as Claws of Anguish. If you use anything like that, afflicts enemies with major defense for 4 seconds, reducing their healing receipt by 36% and health recovery by 36%. More enemies in front of you which obtain the claws, dealing physical damage and an additional disease damage over 10 seconds. On top of that, you can also just do the regular light attack from your werewolf form, which will apply bleed damage. They have a very powerful self-use, such as Hersine's Rage, Invoke the Huntsman's Blessing, healing you for 49% of your max health and granting you major brutality. Now 49% of your max health is high, because not only are you in PvP, the werewolf form will also increase your health and your other stats. So with these increased stats, you have a very large health pool, and with a percentage instant based heal, it can be very strong. The only thing you gotta watch out for then is your Magicka recovery. Stamina users tend to have a low Magicka recovery, and Hersine's Rage is a Magicka based skill. The thing you could do, for example, what I do is I use the Atronic Wonders when I know I'm going into a situation where I want to use the werewolf form. Now other abilities such as Hall of Agony use 40% more damage to enemies that are feared, Deafening Roar, apply major fractures to them, reducing physical resistance. You can already see a little bit how the werewolf works here. You want Hersine's Rage to self-heal and increase your weapon damage, light attacks and Claws of Anguish for damage over time attacks and debuffs, and Hall of Agony is gonna be a spammable, and Deafening Roar you can fear your enemy, and when they are feared you will also deal more damage with Hall of Agony. So you get your debuffs up on your enemy, you fear them, and then you directly use Hall of Agony. Now for both situations, if you ever think about going werewolf, I really would recommend the pack leader, especially for PvP. The 2 direwolves that are being summoned with it are just so incredibly good for damage negation. They will take up an ultimate, a meteor, anything like that. If you are ever fighting a werewolf pack leader, you will just notice how annoying those 2 little wolves are that will spawn, and even if you kill them, they will come back in like 10 seconds. So yeah, there you go. All in all, I would just say that vampires are overall more for Magicka users and werewolves are more for stamina users. Vampire is also great for people who want to, you know, be a tank in either PvE or who are looking for some extra movability in PvP situations as a stamina character on classes such as the Templar or a Dragon Knight who don't really have movability. The Werewolf is a very powerful class that is really good, but sometimes it can be hard if you are in pressure situations, if you have a low magical recovery, to sufficient self-heal yourself with Hurricane Rage. Another thing is that you cannot purge or purify yourself with something like Extended Ritual. I mean, if you play a Dragon Knight, you couldn't either, but if you play a Templar, so people will put a lot of debuffs on you and you are not able to get rid of those. Keep that in mind and make sure you do some kiting around objects so you don't get too many debuffs on you at a time. Now, another thing is the Werewolf is very powerful, increased damage, increased max stamina, increased resistance, so you kind of become a little bit more like a Juggernaut, but again, keep in mind the recovery and stuff like that. Now, there really isn't one better than the other. It's just, like I said, the situation that you're going for. If you're going for a Magicka Templar, I personally wouldn't really go with Werewolf because there is no need for going Werewolf. If you go in a Werewolf form, you will have low weapon damage, you will have a low stamina pool, and the only thing that you will have high is your Magicka recovery, which will allow you for healing spams, but apart from that you will not be powerful. If you're a stamina Werewolf, you are incredibly powerful. Now, Magicka, like I said, definitely go for something as the Vampire if you want more movability or recovery. But keep in mind, your health recovery is also severely reduced. So you will not be able to, or well, it's not advised to run something like Troll King and go with a Vampire because it will just really lower your health recovery. That's pretty much it. Now keep in mind that if you are a Werewolf and you do not use the ultimate, there is no downside. You do not have to cure your Werewolf. You can just stay a Werewolf and not use it, and there will be no downside to it. If you need more guides or builds, feel free to check out learneso.net. I got a Vampire guide, I got a Werewolf guide. I will link them underneath the description, and they also show how you can cure yourself. Gold guides, leveling guides, PvP and PvE builds. I wish you guys a great day. Bye bye. See you in Tamriel. I'm out.